So, Kev, we're recording the follow up to our last video before that video got online. So, they're both going to go up on the same day.
Uh-huh. Don't let's not start this off on a sour note. That's-
You messaged me like 2 days ago, like, hey, everything good? No, sorry, all been
Have we
super
have
busy.
we have we lost our passion for podcasting or
No, I mean, I enjoy recording. And honestly, the edits aren't
that's just
hard.
what
It's
that's
just,
what that's what I said.
yeah, yeah.
Wanted to make sure.
No, it was funny when you sent that because I'm like, well, the uploading is not that hard. I just have to actually make time to do it. We don't edit our videos, so anything we say that's stupid stays on here.
Yeah. And that actually does remind me that I have some thoughts on the differences between some of the races. Um
Yeah, let's keep going. Anyway, so today we wanted to follow up on our conversation and talk about the coaching staff. Is there
some of
anything
them
else you
look
want to?
some of them look different than some of the other ones. It's true. I'm I'm
Yeah,
I'm just going to say it.
I mean, check your biases at the door. That's all we got to say. Going on. Before we start that, did you any closing notes on our boy Ben Johnson?
No.
Nothing. All right, cool.
Hey, if we have time in this episode, I think we should talk about, um, how Ben Johnson's hiring will relate to the personnel, but that's for a different day.
Or we should probably get on to the personnel after this episode, to be honest with you. Anyway, moving forward, because we've got free agency coming up in a couple weeks. It's exciting.
Oh
And
hell
the
yeah,
combine,
baby!
combine at the end of February. We're close.
Yeah. Can we get really drunk on around your birthday again and watch the combine? That was fun last year.
Oh, I'm totally down for it. Absolutely. Um, anyway, moving forward, let's talk about this coaching staff. And maybe we can get drunk to that. Did you grab a beer? You don't have a beer. I'm confused.
Well, it's Saturday at noon. I'm more of a Friday night drink. I haven't decided if I'm gonna have beer today. I stepped on the scale. I didn't love what I
Okay, wait,
saw,
hold
but
on.
but I haven't pooped yet today.
Oh, nice. I actually haven't either for other reasons. Um, hold
You're
on.
edging. You're doing the
Yeah.
edging equivalent of pooping, where you hold in the poop as long, and it's all the more pleasurable when it finally.
Oh yeah, 1000%.
This
Things
is
only come
this
out
is
of my butt, but
this is
it's gotta
this is probably a
stimulate nice. It's
terrible area to
terrible
be in
start
right
to
now.
terrible start to the podcast for anybody who might be grossed out by that. But
Dennis
also,
Allen, huh?
yeah, let's go on and get started. Dennis Allen. We'll start there. Defensive
Yeah,
coordinator. Thoughts?
yeah. Well, I'll say this: when Ben Johnson was hired, I think it might have been Rappaport or somebody who said that he had an all-star coaching staff lined up. And I'll say this about Ben: I was a little concerned, just due to his relative inexperience, that he might not have a ton of connections. So I wasn't sure if he'd be able to put together a great coaching staff, and I guess we'll decide at the end of this whether or not he did. But I am I'm pretty happy with Dennis Allen, especially considering the free agents that were available. Um, I don't actually know if I care that Dennis Allen has had coaching experience, but it can't hurt, to help with a first time head coach. There's that aspect. I mean, Dennis Allen was a really, really awful head coach. I can't believe he lasted as long as he did. Um, but besides that, yeah, I don't. I like that it's not going to require a huge shift in personnel. Um, I think we could agree that Eberflus was a good, um, often boring defensive coordinator, and it seems like Allen, it, broad strokes, you could say Allen basically does the same things. You were looking up his tendencies. There's some differences that you could point out, but yeah, I was happy with it.
Yeah, he's gonna be so. Dennis Allen definitely runs a lot of too high. From what I could tell, based off of match quarters numbers, from what I know, even actually, I think I said that to you before we were looking up the numbers. He runs a ton of too high. Obviously, it goes back to the nickel corner is going to be an important position. But to be honest with you, every single defense right now the nickel corner is important. A lot of teams are playing with nickel personnel because you need to be able to match with like 11 personnel, etc. Unless they're going heavy, there's no reason to go into base. But he has emphasized himself the importance of that. So hey, my boy, Kyler Gordon, what up? On that, continuing, he's much more aggressive on second and third and short. Significantly more aggressive. He ranked on blitz rates. He ranked top 10 on third and short, and he's second and short in blitz rates.
So I heard you say that, and I want to make sure that we keep this not just listing numbers. What do you think about that? That I don't know if I actually love that.
I like it. For me, it's getting a quick pressure, right? On anything short. So you're exposing yourself for a big. So like Ben Johnson would probably call shot play at that point, right? Knowing his tendencies, and you're probably exposed to that shot play. According to the numbers, he also blitzes a ton with either 5 or 7. He's about average with 6. So he does bring a lot of 7-man pressures, which is, I think, really nice because if you look at Eberflus's setup, he only brought an extra man. He almost
would
rarely
say-
ever brought more than one.
You mentioned that, and I would say, unlike Brian Flores, who brings 7-man pressures at a gargantuan rate, for Allen, I'd imagine it is I'm same thing as when I'm playing like video games. I'm getting mad that I'm not getting to the quarterback. Nothing's working. Fuck it. I'm sending 7 right now.
Well, you're gonna need
that's what it feels like.
You're gonna need DBs in this defense. You're absolutely gonna need DBs that can cover, and that's one thing that leans towards our strengths because we are exposing ourselves, as I mentioned. However, if you have the DBs for it, which I don't think New Orleans did, so I'm pretty sure his blitz rates are pretty low on others in other situations, specifically because of that.
It kind of went year by year, I would say.
Yeah, this past year is what I mean. I can't remember if they were injured. They have our boy. Why am I blanking on his name? From anyway,
let's kind of keep in mind. Let's kind of keep in mind that he wasn't really around for half of this year.
That's true.
So, like, he did have Lattimore when he was still there. Adebo was having a pretty good season. Safeties are fine. I think they still used Howden at safety. I don't remember.
Yep.
I think that it was a fine group at full health, and then it got extremely unhealthy. But I think for the most part, Allen was gone by then.
Yeah, and I that also probably explains some of the blitz rates being lower on the numbers. I do know that he likes to run a lot of too high and come down from there. Does a lot of man coverage too, rotations into cover 1. I don't think he does a lot of cover 3 though. I could be mistaken. I need to watch more. I need to watch film, to be fair. Something we did not get done before this episode, but
it's possible I'm not going to watch a single second of film this whole. Well, I'll watch some draft guys, but besides that, screw it.
I could see them once they've lost him going more into vanilla setups, right?
Once we turn this into a Patreon and people pay me, I'll watch film. Otherwise,
that's never gonna happen, man.
We'll see. Oh, I think we're right on the cusp.
If only. Maybe probably a couple light years off the cusp, but we'll figure that out.
I think we get my parents to pay $5 a month for access to the Patreon. Well, you can convince yours, and I think our wives.
You know what? I'll pay to the Patreon.
What sucks is our wives will do that, but it's our money.
If I pay to the Patreon, will you watch film? If I make a Patreon and start paying to it, that goes basically into Kevin Doyle's wallet. Will you watch?
If I got a better cut of it, yeah.
There we go. Well, no, I'll make sure that $5 that I send in every month just goes to you.
Oh, but then do I have to put $5 that goes to you?
No.
Oh, hell yeah. Okay.
I'll stop contributing once we actually get contributors.
I'm gonna get film watching Maniac then.
$5 for a whole month of film. Let's go. Anyway, we do know I'm gonna quickly wrap up. He's gonna be way more aggressive. He runs a lot of cover 2 and cover 1. He likes to be in man, specifically, a lot more.
I like that.
I like that as well. I will say the one thing that I wanted in this DC hire was something more modern. Let that be less smoke and mirrors than McDonald with something more Fangio-esque, or let that be all of the smoke and mirrors and give me all of the Mike McDonald. And when I say smoke and mirrors, what I mean is every type of post snap, rotation, pass rush setup, sim pressures, etc. It's
Okay.
another thing. They were low in sim pressure rate. I don't think he's one to do sim pressures. He is one for stunts though. I will say this with the defensive coordinator hire, it works out well with the personnel that we have. It's going to be more aggressive than what we had before, which was Flus. My blood pressure half the time. How many third and longs this year got converted?
I mostly want to blame Eric Washington on that one. It had a big spike when Eric Washington took over.
It was happening earlier on in the season too, though.
It was happening more than it needed to, but it was happening, like, I would say more often than not with Eric Washington. Like 3rd and
Yeah,
20, I felt worse about than 3rd and 4
I
with
will,
Eric Washington.
but I also think when Flus was there, and granted, what was it? No, when Flus was there, we were giving up well above what I would consider acceptable. It did spike, but I would say we were still
For it to have happened more than once on 3rd and 15 plus is unacceptable.
yes.
At the Vikings converted one in that first game where Flus was still the coach. I remember that. So it would really only take one more for me to say,
Yeah.
yes, it was really bad. I'm just
Packers
saying
converted a
it was
bunch. I'm pretty
way,
sure the
way
Lions
worse.
converted a bunch. Like, yes, everything about our defense got way worse
Yeah.
after Flus left, but it was still pretty damn bad.
Yeah. I think so. Uh, I'll say this. I think Allen was the best possible hire. I was definitely intrigued by Lou Anarumo, Big Lou from ended up going to the Colts. Um,
Want some of
even
those
though like
non-traditional
historically,
Tampas?
yeah, like historically, his defenses actually haven't been that good. But damn, they've been one of the few that always has the Mahomes answer, which I guess we don't care so much about. But I was intrigued by Lou.
Bengals
But
were league worst this year, but they also had almost no groceries to cook with.
but so
Like
the
that personnel
things.
sucked.
Sure, but even like I think if you check the Bengals like defensive ranks over the past like 5 years, I think you'd be a little surprised that they're lower than you'd think. Um,
How much of that do you think has to do with an explosive offense on the other side, putting the defense back out there as often? They probably have way more possessions per game, I feel
I
like.
mean, I'm talking like DVOA, that
Okay, that's
actual.
fair.
I think you'd just be a little surprised that it's a little lower than you'd think, not crazy
That's
low,
fair.
but so I think in general, I think I'd take Dennis over Lou. Two questions for you though. You said Fangio style possibly. Would you have been, for example, happier with Brandon Staley?
Happier? I don't know, because I do think Dennis Allen has so much experience in the league that helps out a lot with Ben Johnson. You remove that, and you add the fact that Brandon Staley comes in with a ton of energy every day, right? And s- s-
Yeah,
uh, specifically, I think why McVay loved him so much was and pulled him from Chicago was the fact that he had that passion and energy.
I kind of feel like that would have vibed kind of nicely with Ben actually.
And we saw how well he would do as he did as a DC. Granted, Rams personnel not on the back end, but on the front end, and on the defensive line, really good at that time. They still had Jalen Ramsey though too, so like even the corners were they had some spot fills on like rookies and stuff and like younger talent.
They had the spots that mattered for what Staley was trying to do. They had, and this is what I'll say. I prefer Allen. We don't really have any of the ingredients besides Jalen is a good corner, and you definitely want that. But besides that, not a lot's fitting. I mean, Brisker would be a great fit as a safety in that style of defense, but God knows what he's going to be. I mean, certainly can't rely on him. Other than that, we don't have a big old beefy front to do those tight fronts. There's honestly too much emphasis on linebacker, whereas Staley kind of de-emphasized that. I don't know. I like I like the seamlessness of Allen. But the other question I have for you is, so you want a McDonald scheme, and I think every team in the NFL does want McDonald esque stuff. But there are 3 members already of the Mike McDonald coaching tree that are defensive coordinators. There's McDonald himself, is a head coach of Seattle, Denard Wilson in Tennessee, Anthony Weaver in Miami, and Zach Orr and his replacement in Baltimore.
Baltimore.
Would you prefer Allen or our fifth branch off of that tree in 2 years? It seems like a lot to expect. Like the fifth best guy that is familiar with that scheme just seems a lot.
No, yeah, I mean, once you start going further down the tree, it really depends on experience with it, and it's so I mean, it's relatively. Yeah, no, probably not. Not with how new the defense is. You saw a lot of like Fangio when you started having some of his tree get hired out.
Yeah.
Quite a few failed until I think more recently you've got more Fangio disciples doing a little bit better. But yeah, no, not with how relatively new everything is. And just for
Yeah.
people who are wondering why I'm a huge fan of Mike McDonald, it's all of the different looks he gives up front, his pressure rotations, the amount of sim pressures he uses. He finds a way to get a free rusher. I mean, we saw it against the Bears. He finds a way to get a free rusher when only sending 4, right? And then on top of that, it's what he does in the back end with it. He doesn't give you a tell, right? There's rotations constantly. He makes quarterbacks think.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
the
the way
Seahawks, it takes a
I
lot to coach. It took like the Seahawks half a year to really figure it out because it's a ton of communication between players. But you saw the Seahawks turn it on once they figured it out.
Yeah, you put it this way once with McDonald, that I liked, and I'm sure other people put it this way too. And there's other defenses that do the same thing, but I think more than anybody else, like, so defenses historically, they're they're not the aggressor. The offense is the aggressor, and the defense is just trying to hold up. And McDonald really seems to flip that.
Yep.
I'm dictating what you guys are doing. I'm the aggressor. You react to us, which is cool. I mean,
Yeah.
It's
I
it's a,
can't.
it's a different mindset. I love it. I just, unless he's the Sean McVay of defenses, I can't be sure that every single one of these hires is going to work.
Right. I'll say one last thing on his defense real quick, and then he's not our DC, so let's move on. The way that I've heard it, I can't remember if it was Coach Voss or Coach Cody Alexander that said it. Defenses want to hold the pen last, right? So essentially, you want to dictate what the offense is doing. You want to create chaos for the offense. You show that last move after the offense has shown you what they're doing. That's really it.
Who's Coach
It
Cody? Who's Coach Cody the coach of? Does he coach?
used to. I don't know if he's coaching right now in high school or not.
And
Cali. He's a Cali high school coach, from what I remember. I think
for
he did
people that
some
for people
D3.
that were not your like high school coach, would you still call them coach? Like if you saw them?
If they're a coach that I've learned from, so like if I saw like Coach Voss, if there's somebody that I respect as a coach, yes.
Hmm. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with it, like the president thing, where you still call the former president president. I think if you're not a coach, you got to go be a coach again for me to call you coach.
I disagree. I still call
Cody,
coaches that I used to have that aren't coaches anymore, coach.
Cody, you're just Cody. Well, that's what I'm saying. If they were your coach, then I think it's fine to be like,
Eh,
hey, what's
agree
up,
to
coach?
disagree. Agree to disagree. Going on back to Dennis Allen. He brings a lot of experience to the coaching staff, which I think is a huge plus, considering Ben Johnson probably needs somebody there. Granted, not exactly a success as a head coach twice over, but even having somebody there who's gone through it helps a ton, just to be able to bounce things off of as things are happening. Fits the
Right.
personnel, as we mentioned. I just want to wrap up Dennis Allen here. Fits the personnel, as mentioned, going to be a lot more aggressive. Don't expect a more modern defense, but expect a potentially fun defense to watch.
Yeah, another thing I thought about from Ben's press conference is that he was asked, a lot of first time head coaches fail or whatever, and Ben said, "Well, I've learned a lot of what not to do, more or less," basically referring to Gase.
Was Phil been successful?
No, not at all.
Yeah, so
But I think
also Joe Philbin.
he probably only overlapped with Philbin by
It's a
a
couple
year,
years.
maybe two. Um, Gase is what he had, front and center. But you know what? I'll I'll say this: Dennis Allen can teach Ben Johnson what not to do just as well as he taught, or he can be an asset towards, like, I don't know, like
You learn from
what
your
is he gonna
mistakes.
do?
You can say what you did during those mistakes, and then they
Yeah,
can say, "Maybe
it
I
would
don't do
require
that."
introspection from both guys, I
Yep.
guess, which I don't know about, but hey, there's that angle. The last thing I got to say about Allen is the Saints defense always really sucked. Like, really always sucked before he got there. Really, the second he got there, they were good every single year. So I don't know. Maybe the Saints had better players, or it could go wrong. But it seems
2017
like
draft
it seems
was
like there's a real solid floor that Allen provides.
that 2017 draft by Mickey Loomis is one what saved him his job. After they were going like 8-8 over and over and over again, wasting the prime of Drew Brees' career, but also
It would
two got them loaded on defense. So it is kind of hard to separate that draft class out. But hey, that also means that he developed a bunch of rookies real quick because they were good right from that.
Did you know they drafted Trey Hendrickson in that draft, and they barely even were able to get Hendrickson on the field? And, like, fast forward to now when he's leading the league in sacks. Like,
That's
even
wild.
that worked out. Like, my God, what a draft.
He was part of that 2017 draft.
Yeah.
All right, Trey Hendrickson's a lot older than I thought. He's a stud. Uh,
Yeah.
wow, what a draft class.
Yeah. Let's move on. So the offensive corner is my cousin, Declan Doyle.
Let's finish the defense real quick. I just want to shout out Al Harris. I think that's an awesome hire. That's it.
Uh, uh, all right, we'll go through the defense real quick.
We don't have to go through all of them. I don't
No,
know if I have notes on all of
I'm
them.
gonna say a couple of their guys' names. Jeremy Grant, defensive line coach. Never heard of him. Don't have anything to say. Richard Smith got hired as the linebackers coach. That dude has been coaching since 1979. That's all I got to say about him. Don't know much about him. Don't really care about a linebacker coach. But he's been coaching since 1979. That is an old dude.
1979. Jeez.
Actually, he's only 69 years old, but still, Jesus.
Still, he's an assistant. That's wild.
Okay,
Defensive line,
cool.
yeah.
Kind of
That's
cool.
awesome.
He's
That
seen
is
some
kick
shit.
ass.
And then, yeah, like you said, Al Harris. So he's been Dallas's DB coach, and boy, they squeeze a lot out of their DBs. Like Deron Bland and Diggs, they both have had their moments of sucking, but they've kind of both gone the same route of, like, guy who got lucky and got a lot of interceptions to just actual good ass cover corner. So
Yep.
that information that I have on Al Harris is good. And on the negative side, one of the most devastating moments of my life, I don't know if it's probably a little before your time, you were a very young man, but I think it was the '03 playoffs, wild card round, when the
That was
Sox
good
came
for
back
them.
and forced overtime. Yeah, that was a really awful moment. Matt Hasselbeck wins the coin toss, says, "We want the ball and we're going to score." Decided to say it in a really high voice for some reason.
Is that what he sounds like? He's
That's what he sounded like when he said that. I don't know. I think it's like a normal voice when I hear him talk, like on ESPN or whatever.
you could use a girl voice,
I want the ball. We're going to score. And then threw a pick six to Al Harris on the first play, or one of the first plays of overtime. So that sucked. I really didn't want the Packers to win that game, but now he's on our side. And yeah, I like the hire. So that's the defense.
Shout out to anyone who knows the reference I just made with girl voice. If you watch Team 4 Star, you do. It's a voice actor
Wait,
thing. No, you stop.
what is Team 4 Star?
Dragon Ball Z abridged and then other things.
What's the thing with Trogdor? What's that thing called?
Oh, Trogdor, Burninator, Trogdor. I'm not gonna sing it right
Like
now.
with all the flash animation, right?
Yeah.
What the hell is that called? It's something star.
Oh, I don't know who made it.
Well, it's
Trogdor
the
is
website you go to watch Trogdor and Teen Girl Squad, which is what I thought you might have been referring to.
oh, Newgrounds?
What the hell am I thinking of?
I
Okay, so
while you
Strong
figure that out.
Bad. Yeah, go
Strong
on.
bad. Thank you for saying that. While you look into that, I will mention Al Harris. I think told I can't remember who if this got leaked or if
Homestar
it got
Runner.
mentioned.
Homestar Runner.
I've never been there.
You've never
Startup
been on.
Steve.
That's what
Have you, ever,
Trogdor's from.
have you ever been on Startup Steve?
No.
Shout out to anyone who used to go on Startup Steve. Al Harris, I think, mentioned he had a conversation with Tyreek Stevenson. I can't remember if Tyreek Stevenson said this on an interview or if it got leaked or something like that, but he essentially said he's going to be working on him to get him up there. Basically, I can't remember if the word was elite, but I think that when you mention somebody like Diggs, I can see him working with somebody like Stevenson who's a little too overly aggressive and getting him to that point where he turns that aggression into interceptions and maybe still big plays, but maybe some more turnovers, and eventually gets him to become, hey, just as aggressive, but also not a liability in coverage.
Man, Teen Girl Squad was so funny. Friggin'
That's exciting.
Strong Bad emails.
While you continue going, I would still probably look to add another corner for competition because what we saw from Stevenson this year was more than subpar.
The
But
browser games were not that fun. I just like the animation stuff.
did you ever go on Newgrounds? Like, I'm so confused.
No, I just want Homestar Runner. I'm kidding. I'm listening to you. I would
yeah.
say with the corner thing, that's true.
No, but
But
hold
also,
on. Did you
this is
ever
a.
go on Newgrounds? Serious
I don't think
question.
so. I don't know what it is.
Holy okay, just keep going.
Newgrounds. I'll look it up.
E-Bombs World?
Let's. Yeah, I went on E-Bombs World for sure.
Continue. What were you saying?
I went on E-Bombs World.
No, we go
Oh,
back
about
to
football.
yeah. Yeah.
I just we're just kind of blindly assigning that to Al Harris because he was the position coach. It might not have been Al Harris. It might have been random, whatever. But
Well, I'm mentioning
Dallas did a pretty good job developing their DBs, and he was their DB coach. So seems good.
I mentioned it because it was something that I believe either got leaked or Stevenson mentioned in an interview. That was a conversation that they had, and like he's excited to work with him too.
Yeah, that's nice. I think just a blanket thing of like, we're going to say some nice things about the coaches, and basically it's all going to be more positive than negative. Spoiler for even the offense, which has some more weirdness than the defense. But at the end of the day, we're guessing. Like, we don't know. We're not there watching what they're doing every day. So just, yeah, Al Harris seems like a big positive. There's that little bit of evidence that we just gave, but at the end of the day, we don't know. We're just giving our quick thoughts here. Is all I wanted to say.
Cool. Let's move on to the offense.
Yeah, can we get to my cousin? The most
yeah.
exciting thing, my cousin got hired to be our offensive coordinator.
Evan
I'm going to be
Doyle.
able to text
How
him.
do you feel about Declan Doyle? And have you talked to your cousin? Have you texted him?
Yeah, I have all sorts of ideas. I was thinking more play action. Caleb needs to turn his back to the defense more often. I texted Declan. Just feature DeAndre Swift more often was kind of a high point that I told Declan. Like, even if DeAndre Swift is losing 2-3 yards consistently, if you keep feeding DeAndre, he eventually is going to bust the big one. And Declan was very responsive to that. So I'd like to think that I've I also said re-sign Keenan Allen and target him way more than the other two guys. And Declan's really receptive to that. So I'm happy about that.
What's the price that you would be okay re-signing Keenan Allen at? Just real quick.
Like 1 year. I give him like 1 year, $8 million.
8-10, yeah. Let's see if you would take that. I doubt it.
Yeah, I'm good turning the page. I think I'd like a more of a speed threat, but we'll talk about that later.
Yes.
No, for real. He shares my surname. He's not my cousin, but So Ben kind of laid out what he wanted in an offensive coordinator. Guy willing to work late nights, guy willing to watch the film, put the game plan together early in the week before Ben kind of puts the finishing touches on it later. And this is the one hire that, again, don't have a ton of information, but it's the one that got me the most excited for whatever reason, because I like that it came from Sean Payton. He knows Sean Payton through Dan Campbell, but it's not a direct line. So I like that it showed that he was able to branch out a little bit. Sean Payton does not. Well, there's similarities between what Sean Payton and Ben Johnson have done, but it's kind of cool to get a guy with a different perspective on things. The offensive coordinator. I like that he's just a young, hungry, 28-year-old or whatever. That is exactly the dude who's going to do exactly what Ben Johnson wants him to do. Maybe he's married, maybe he's not, maybe he has a life, maybe he doesn't. I would assume probably not, considering how fast he's risen in the coach ranks. And a guy with no life is exactly who I want as the glorified lackey for Ben Johnson. But I do think he's got a lot of. I suspect he has a lot of knowledge to pass along, coming from the Peyton background, and
Also with working with Bo Nix as well and taking a rookie quarterback who struggled in the beginning.
sure.
Right.
And who knows
Different
exactly how much
struggles,
a
but
tight end coach has had to do with Bo Nix, but as has been said
well, he
by other
yeah.
people, tight end coaches are cool because they have to care about the pass game and the run game to a greater extent than almost any positional coach, by the nature of what a
Which
tight end's job is.
Dan
So
Campbell being a tight ends coach, as well as Ben Johnson having formerly been a tight ends coach, as well as Sean McVay
Sean
having
McVay,
formerly
yeah,
been a tight ends coach.
lot of great offensive minds were tight end coaches, whether they played tight end or not.
Yeah.
Just
But
having a knowledge of overall offense is a
yeah,
prerequisite for a tight end.
I'm sure he was
coach.
also involved in some of the meetings and at least heard what they were doing,
Sure.
etc.
Yeah.
That's where I'm getting there.
So I like that. And yeah, to be involved in a group of people that got anything out of Bo Nix, who I still think probably fucking sucks, is super super impressive. So yeah, I don't know. I guess two questions for you, or if you have your own stuff, ignore me. But what do you think about this hire? And also, is this the type of guy that you would have liked as the offensive coordinator? The type of role, the role that Ben Johnson wants the offensive coordinator to have. There are many things he could have done here. Is this what you would have wanted?
I think the only thing I would have asked for would have been experience. And to be honest with you, the offensive coordinator position was a position like a coaching staff hire that I wasn't as concerned about, because in my mind, yes, Ben Johnson's going to be super busy with meetings as a head coach, and it's going to be dealing with a lot more than he needs additional support. But he's not your main play caller, right? The offensive coordinator is not going to be your main play caller. The offensive coordinator is going to be there to set up the beginnings of a game plan and then work with Ben Johnson to figure out the rest from there.
Right.
So to me, I would have liked a little bit of experience just because Ben Johnson doesn't have as much, and it helps. When I say that, obviously Ben Johnson has a lot of great experience as an offensive coordinator. What I mean is he doesn't have a lot as a head coach, so it would help to have some experience at OC to help offload. But I didn't care enough, and to be honest with you, I kind of do like this hire for weird reasons. Like it goes back to finding that young, enthusiastic, incredibly passionate OC, right? And bringing him in, letting him, like, giving him the safety net and working with him to see if he can see, like, somebody like that, somebody who's risen that quickly from GA to QA to tight end coach, who was taken by Sean Payton as a QA from New Orleans to be the tight end coach over in Denver, right? So from his own staff.
Mm-hmm.
To be somebody who's risen up that quickly without, I don't believe, any connections. This isn't a nepo, any kind of like nepotism attached to it for his rise up.
Oh, yes, it is.
Is it?
My uncle Chris Doyle is a famous racist.
I forgot Chris Doyle, Iowa. Weight room, baby.
Yeah.
Strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
Right. He's associated to that, man.
Don't look that up. It's not actually my uncle. But
Totally
yeah, this
forgot.
is
This would be a nepo
but
hire. Yeah, there's some nepo there. I
I mean, the strength and conditioning
I
coach isn't,
still
isn't teaching Declan Doyle much ball. I'll say that.
right,
So,
but he's also like he knows Harbaugh as well, right? Chris Doyle
oh,
does. He works for the Chargers at the moment, I believe.
I don't think he works for anybody. I know he knows Urban
And
Meyer. I know he knows Kirk Ferentz. I don't know if he knows Harbaugh. I'll look it up. Go ahead.
or he was asked to? No, he's not. He was with the Jaguars. I thought he was. Hold on, I want to look this up. Chargers. Anyway,
I'm looking. He doesn't have
I
any
still don't
connection.
want to retract anything that I said because I still feel like it's still true. But yes, there's some nepotism there. So he did have some nepo help. So I got to remove that part of it.
There typically is. Either you're a
Yeah,
really good football player or it's nepo. There's usually
yeah.
not a third
But even
way
with
to get
nepo
in.
hires, man, you don't move up to you don't move up from a QA to an assistant, like a position coach, until you're a little bit older. Like the people that move up this quick are typically the Sean McVays, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to compare him to him. I have no idea how the hell his career will work out. What I'm trying to talk about is the passion and work behind it. It sounds like he's a guy who is incredibly. This isn't like I don't know. Why am I blanking on Aaron Rodgers' boy who was with the Jets OC? He used to be the Broncos head coach.
Nathaniel Hackett.
Nathaniel Hackett, who sits there and makes Goldfinger jokes the whole time. And Austin Powers jokes, and he just seems like, from everything that I've gotten a beat on this man, that he's not an offensive coordinator as much as it is Aaron Rodgers as the
So
OC.
Nathaniel Hackett makes Austin Powers jokes.
Yeah, you didn't know this? Did you not watch Hard Knocks?
Uh, yeah, I did.
Okay, so
I
you
don't
don't
know.
know.
I don't
Anyway,
remember every little thing, but I should remember that because making Austin Powers jokes is awesome. I love making Austin Powers
I love how
jokes.
I'm the one trying to keep us focused. It's kind of funny. Typically, this is the exact opposite. Anyway, Nathaniel Hackett being the quintessential, coming from like his father Paul Hackett, Nepo setup, where you get promoted past what you probably can do, right? And who knows, maybe this is that for Declan Doyle, at least at
Yeah.
this time of his life. It could be.
My hot take, though, is that if the Bears are any good at all, Declan will never call a play in his life, and he will be a head coach somewhere in 2-3 years. That's
Yes.
that's my prediction.
We'll probably
It just seems like this is the type of guy who finds himself in very high demand.
we'll probably get to keep him for a couple of years before somebody wants to hire him as an as like a play calling offensive coordinator, right? At that point, we'll figure it out, and then he'll probably go to head coach from there. I don't see the NFL.
My take is straight to offensive or straight to a head coach. Yep.
Well, going back to what I was trying to say, the other parts of it is he needs, as I mentioned, the offensive coordinator for Ben Johnson needs to create like a skeleton of a game plan. If you look at what like a QA and GA does, on top of doing some of the piss work, right? And creating all the training decks, etc., getting all the drills set. They also watch a ton of film and do a lot of the breakdowns and prepare the situation, like write notes on situations that the other team is doing. They're typically the ones that have to do a lot of the extra work, is how I'll put it. Obviously your OC is going to watch film as well, but they're the ones really digging in there and watching several games worth of a team and starting to break them down into situations and what they do, etc. I think the experience that he has just from being a GA and a QC, I said QA earlier, QC, is probably what he needs to be able to handle this role. Take that and then add in the fact that, hey, now that I've actually seen what their tendencies are and I've written them out, I actually have to go in and figure those out. That's that next step, right? And then I need to start figuring out what our game plan is to break those tendencies. And he will work with Ben Johnson for the final stretch of that. So I think it's great because I think there's a lot of high upside, him bringing in ideas, as well as being somebody who's going to put in all the work that's actually necessary to give Ben Johnson what he needs. At least
Yeah.
as somebody who sounds like he's young and motivated.
So I'm weirdly bullish on it. Hard to. Jesus, my mic just dropped on me. It was so impressed by what I said, it dropped itself instead of me having it drop the mic. Yeah, I'm obviously bullish on it. That's why I have that weird prediction. But the other option, the other way we could have gone, is just get the offensive line coach signed up, promote an offensive line coach to offensive coordinator. Can still do some of that grunt work, probably not quite as much as a young, dumb, full-come 28-year-old would do for you. But man, when we hired Ben Johnson, my first thought was, oh damn, bring Hank Fraley over, make him the OC. Just kind of turns out Fraley didn't seem all too interested in that. So,
Well, it also sounds like Ben Johnson didn't want to poach Fraley either. As like he supposedly, from my understanding, not supposedly, he absolutely reveres Dan Campbell. He wasn't going to just completely poach everything. And I think Fraley is that one piece that you're not going to want to poach. That's I just sent you a G chat. Starterupsteve.com. It's got the Cartman gifts.
You had to go to archive.
Yeah, it's not up anymore. You know what year I'm on? I'm on 2005.
I bet E-Bombs World's still up there.
Oh, we can check later. I had to look it up while we're doing this.
Y Team MD, remember that? You the man now, dog? Another one.
No.
All right, fine. But all right, whatever. That gets to Dan Ruchar.
Oh, we want to just jump straight there?
Yes, we do. Because we just talked about how an offensive line coach would have been possibly a nice thing to hire to ensure we get a really good offensive line coach.
And to transition there, I had mentioned that the OC wasn't as important of a hire to me as two other positions, quarterback coach and offensive line coach, which I think is the most crucial hire of any staff.
So how was my transition not good?
I was doubling up your transition. We're doing a double transition.
Okay, double transition.
Double transition.
Let's go. Dan Ruchar, I have almost no thoughts. This dude has held so many positions. It's so this is what's confusing me about his profile. So he is definitely an offensive line coach first and foremost, but I am curious. I'm should have looked this up ahead of time. So he was the Saints offensive line. Well, let's actually.
He was also the tight ends coach as well for a little bit. He got fired as the run game coordinator and tight ends coach, and he was the tight ends coach years before.
Another Sean Payton boy. Started off as the running back coach, then the tight end coach in 2015. Then from 2016 to 2020, the offensive line coach. Those offensive lines were good. Not top 10 here, but they were good for sure. Top 10 for most of the years at least.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of him then becoming the run game coordinator and tight ends coach from 2021 to 2022. I don't actually remember what the Saints did in 2020. Maybe I should look that up, and maybe that will jog my memory as to what the issue might have been. Or is it an issue? Because
they hired Brendan Nugent.
I see that 2020 Saints. I think they were pretty good. They won the division. Yeah, they went 12-4. I don't know. Just if nothing else, just kind of interesting to me that they decided to replace the offensive line coach. I don't know. I'd have to look more into it.
Came from the
curious is what I would say about it.
He came from the Seahawks. What was the Seahawks offensive line like in 2020? It wasn't that. Was 2020 the year that he was the offensive line coach with Shane Waldron? Was that Shane Waldron's first year with the Seahawks, 2020?
I think so. Wait, no.
Seahawks OC. Or was that the year?
That was shoddy. The Seahawks went 12-4.
Yeah, so no, he left Brian Schottenheimer.
This was one of the prime let Russ cook years, where Russ did cook, but I think trailed off a bit in the at the end of the season. I can't remember.
That was the year that he was like MVP halfway through, and then he sucked.
I think that's
I
right.
remember tweeting saying, "Why aren't people playing cover? Like, why aren't people playing too high? Their defenses were constantly letting themselves just get destroyed over the top. And it made no sense to me."
I'm looking at this offensive line. The personnel's not very good. I don't know. It was always hard to tell with Russ anyway, because Russ was your classic running into a sack type of guy. So I don't know. It just back to Rushar. It just is curious. I don't know what it means yet. I look forward to doing a little more research and figuring out what it means. Of the guys that were available, they also looked at Notre Dame's guy and Ohio State's guy, and I think I do prefer somebody with some experience and some success in the NFL. There's some weirdness that translates a little oddly.
Tulane also had a good offensive line considering the program that they are.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure they're like,
yeah, they had a good team. Why he landed in Tulane at Tulane is, I don't know. It's just a little odd. I'm inclined to say this is not my favorite hire. But again, he has had success. Those were good offensive lines in New Orleans. So I'm just let it play out. It's
not a slam dunk hire.
It's not like Chris Moore. It's not like Chris Morgan had never seen a good offensive line. Is maybe illustrative of what gives me some pause.
Shredding dangerous spotters there.
Well, I mean, he had, like, everybody oversees some good offensive lines. So I don't know. Maybe this could be really bad. It could be good. I don't know.
I would argue that the offensive line with Tulane was pretty good while he was there, especially again considering the program that they are. Tulane's always been a good program within like their conference.
Yeah, and especially so recently when he's been there for sure.
And then you also had the success that he had with the Saints. Also, I want to quickly correct myself with the Russell Wilson. When I say C2, what I mean is C2 variant, so like C2, C4, C6, before anybody calls me out.
Nobody's going to.
I know, nobody's listening.
If somebody was going to, it would have been me, and I didn't. So
yeah, you should have. Why didn't you? The hell, dude? Call my dumbass out. I need that shit.
He was Illinois' running back coach in 2003. I'm trying to remember who our running back was back then.
Illinois' running back coach 2003 was not no. Richard would have been still in high school.
Yeah, not Richard. I don't know. Probably just some guy.
03 would have been Richard's junior year.
Oh, this dude! I didn't know. I did not realize he's held 4 different positions at Illinois over 2 separate stints. All right, I'm on board. Let's go, baby.
All right, there we go. Maybe we shouldn't be doing research as we record next time.
I think we'd be a little less long-winded about boring stuff, and if we don't know, we just move on. But
yeah, my last point.
The profile just is not super promising to me. I wish we would have done better.
I think it's a fine hire. I think his success previously in the NFL as well as his success in the college game tells me that it's at least got to me, I'm hoping for a good floor. What I worry about, and this is where I say maybe it's not the best hire, right? Where I was hoping for like a slam dunk, is I don't know if we're getting like anywhere near what like Fraley does, for instance. I don't know if we're going to get somebody, or even who's the Eagles offensive line coach right now? Taking Jordan Mailata out of rugby, pulling him in from Australian football, whatever it was, pulling him in, getting him in like a year ready to play. There's Mekhi Becton pushing him into guard.
I hate it when you
we don't need to look it up.
Right against the edge of my football knowing thing where I can't pull the name. It's like Southland or something. He's really good. I know that.
So like I don't know if we'll be getting that, and I was really hoping we'd find a name that was close to that, and that's really difficult to do. So it's a big ask.
Yeah, the tough thing is for offensive line coaches if you don't use the trick to bring him over to offensive coordinator or use the assistant head coach tag to promote somebody within or to steal somebody from another organization. If you don't do one of those two things, you're either dealing with a guy that's been a part of a staff that just got fired, like the head coach got fired, so there's some free agents out there. You're doing what the Patriots did with like Dane Scarnacchia and just getting guys out of retirement, or you're just kind of stuck with this. And there's not a lot of great options if you're not willing to do those
Yeah,
first two tricks I mentioned.
you say that, but also if I remember correctly, there's only been like 13 offensive line coaches that have ever been promoted to OC from their directly from offensive line coach. It just doesn't happen often
Happened with Aaron
because
Cromer,
teams. Yeah,
and
I
then he
hear you.
got into a feud with our quarterback.
Yay.
So here, I know you. This was very important for you to mention before this started. So Rushar, wait and see. We have nothing really interesting to say
Yep.
about him, but this was important for you to mention. There is an assistant offensive line coach. It's important that you all know this.
Why you gotta be? Why you gotta be a jerk? Why you gotta be a jerk?
I told you I was going to do this.
I know you did. I know you did. I'm in for the heat. Do it. I think it's important to have a good assistant, if especially if, again, we're talking about maybe potentially a lower ceiling, maybe not. Who knows? Maybe it's just talent that he needs, right?
Yeah.
But potentially a lower ceiling, having a second guy there that I would want to know about the assistant offensive line coach.
Right. So
And
I
you're all
do.
like, no, we don't need to touch on it. I
Well,
just wanted to mention.
you just said it's important that we mention it, and I was pressed you as to why it was important. But I came up with actually two things that I wanted to say about this guy. His name's Kyle Devan. He came from Oregon State, 1 year at Oregon State. Before that, 1 year at Charlotte. Before that, 1 year at Colorado. Before that, 1 year under Harbaugh at Michigan. So
Also a previous player.
yeah, so I do remember the name from when he played. I think he was a bad starter for the Colts
Mhm.
for a couple of years, and I don't know if he ever got another starting shot outside of a year or two with Indy. Um, I don't know anything besides that, but here's what I will say. So we were going to get an assistant offensive line coach. This is an opportunity to get like a prospect. It's like Rushar, he could retire in a year for all we know. Maybe get somebody in the building who can be promoted, and that can be like your badass Eagles guy or whatever. We dropped the ball here. It was obvious that we needed to hire Olin Kreutz to be the assistant offensive line coach. I think we could have done more. I think the last time we made an offer for him to come in and consult, we offered him something like minimum wage. I think we could have bumped that up to $18 an hour, something like that. Getting a guy like Olin Kreutz in the building to physically assault anybody who's smaller than him really, really would have been great. And I checked the comments a couple times on Bleacher Nation, and I think Windy City Gridiron, and just overwhelmingly positive feedback on people wanting Olin Kreutz in the building. Truly, I think 95% of fans actually did want Olin Kreutz, and count me among them. I'm a huge fan of Olin Kreutz.
You are lying through your damn teeth.
He is a fucking
Let me
psycho. Keep him the fuck away. I hate
Here's
that
the
guy.
thing.
I
Here's
hate
the
him.
thing.
I am so
Let me
happy that the Bears had a good center for 10 years. All due respect. I saw the guy speak live in person last year at some little event. Every bit the psycho, even in the context of giving a little speech at the banquet, every bit the psycho that you assumed he was. Get him the hell away. I don't want him anywhere near the Bears.
Here's the thing. Just for any fans that might disagree with this, that may be listening. If you can't take somebody having different ideas to an extent, or like maybe even jabbing a joke because you're constantly so hard-headed about certain things. So like I'm thinking like Adam Hogue here, that you have to choke the man out, right? Allegedly.
Yeah.
I'm not, just in case we get sued. I look at the way I look at the way that
I'm sorry, I got to cut in really quick. I would like to choke Adam Hogue out myself,
oh no,
but I don't.
I give Adam Hogue a hug.
But I don't do it. That's what's important. I would
So
not do it.
here's the thing that you need from your coaching staff. You need a coaching staff that is able to. Oh, I hate using this word too because Nagy ruined this one, and it's one of my favorite words in life. Collaborate. Collaboration is important in almost every line of business. I'm sorry, like every job, collaboration is important if you work on a damn team. If you have a guy who gets so upset that, hey, in this game we did actually need to throw the ball 40 times, right? And now we give him a place in which he can speak that up in a way that actually can affect it. I don't know, honestly, considering just some of his violent history on the team, as a media personality, etc., that I want somebody who could get as angry as he does about not feeling like he's being heard and about feeling like people are being stupid about their decisions, right? Because he's so focused on and pigeonholed into what I would call non-modern NFL football. I would not want that on my staff. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Yeah,
And like a phenomenal football player. There are
for many
personalities
of the
that work.
Reasons that make him such a bad coach.
Yes. You know what I want as a coach, as a former player?
Violent.
Give me Mitchell Schwartz. Casey,
Sure.
right tackle, literally all about technique. His whole game, like he should not have been as good as he was if it wasn't for the fact that he understood what it meant to be patient with your setups and to understand that the defensive line is trying to set you up. Give me him. He understands offensive line play phenomenally.
Yeah, there's a lot of former Bears.
Also very calm, very smart.
A lot of former Bears. Not the Mitchell Schwartz is one, but there's a lot of former Bears that if they hired them, I'd be ecstatic.
Get Peanut Tillman out of the FBI. Do you think he got fired during the clean out that this current dipshits have done?
Huh.
I wonder. I don't know.
Thought about that.
I don't know. Yeah. But yeah. Bring him on in.
I honestly probably because one could argue that he's DEI, which is one of the worst things in the world you could ever be. So,
oh, God. Yes, God forbid you expand your fucking pool that you hire from. Anyway.
Yeah, terrible to.
If only they understood what that term actually meant.
Just final thing on Kreutz is he is a man of severe mental and emotional issues, and a lot of people confuse that, for the tough old school kind of approach that is needed, especially maybe on the offensive line. No, you don't have to have severe mental and emotional issues. There's a lot of other smart, thoughtful people like Dan Campbell who presents toughness and masculinity in a way that is more than acceptable to me. Olin Kreutz does not. That is not the guy.
There's a major difference between being, how do I put this, a rah guy and somebody who potentially can be a liability emotionally.
Yeah. So I got to say, you wanted to talk about Kyle Devan, and I pulled a conversation topic out of my ass. How about that? That's some A+ podcasting, baby.
Brief tangent. Who else would you want? Former Chicago Bear. I've got a couple former Chicago Bears that could be decent position coaches.
In my mind, just because I know they're coaching at the high school level, Johnny Knox and Nathan Basher, just because they're two of my favorite Bears of all time, so I'd be excited. They've been coaching at the high school level. If they were hired as positional coaches, oh my God, I'd be so happy. Those are probably not two names that would have come to your mind. One name that would not come to my mind is quarterback coach Chase Daniel is one that would not come to my mind.
No, not at all, because everything is actually great according to Chase Daniels, and it's literally never the quarterback's fault.
It would come. I only mention him because that is a name that would come to a lot of people's mind. Is yes, Chase Daniel. No,
I don't know. I don't know. I'm pretty sure. I mean, at least I'm pretty sure Bears fans understand what Chase Daniel is as like a evaluator of talent.
I don't know. He's got a following somehow. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like, he should be a quarterback coach.
I had so talking about mentally unstable, but however, I also know that this player understands mental health. Brandon Marshall is wide receiver coach.
Oh boy. I see where you're going. And I certainly don't want to discriminate against people that have actual mental health issues that they acknowledge and mostly take care of, but sometimes he doesn't take care of them
I
in
agree.
our experience. So that is maybe an issue.
That's fair. That's fair. And I wanted to throw that out there as maybe an opposite example of, hey, maybe potentially, as long as you're aware of your faults, you
Yeah,
can work through them.
for sure.
Matt Forte is running back coach. I mean, that's an obvious one.
The things he did as a player seems like it would translate well to a vast knowledge of the game. Sure, yeah.
And then I had to go OL coach. Oh man, why am I forgetting? Roberto Garza or
Yeah.
Kyle Long. As an
Huh.
assistant, you would need work, I think.
It's tough when somebody has such a Twitter presence. You see Kyle Long often enough that
Mhm.
you start to then kind of come up with examples where they had said something you disagreed with that you thought was stupid.
Oh, that's a lot with Kyle Long, but you also like
But he, again, he is a smart guy and he was tough as hell. And yeah, I
Mitchell
mean,
Schwartz did
certainly,
something that I called him out on recently. It was like a year ago where he said,
yeah,
"Oh no, but the linebacker went. That's a blitz. No, they went with 4. That's a sim pressure." Where he's like calling out somebody. I'm like, "No, you're wrong, dude." And
right.
everyone has dumb
Yeah, I'm
takes.
saying it's
Granted,
it's tough. It's tough when I do have some insight into their mind.
yeah, I hear.
But yeah, no, I'm with you. Kyle Long would be. I would not be surprised if he popped up somewhere as an offensive line assistant coach for sure. But in this case, it's Kyle Devan, and I would say unless we got another fun former Bears coach or turned coach. Oh, Josh McCown,
Mike Brown.
he's already there.
Mike
Mike
Brown.
Brown. Oh my God, literally my favorite Bear of all time, of course. But
Mike Brown.
he could be the head coach. I don't care.
Sweet. All right, let's move on. All right, I think we got enough with the offensive line coach. I had mentioned quarterback coach as another really important one. The sad part is I don't have much to say about JT Barrett.
Yeah, nobody could possibly. He was a fun college quarterback.
Drama between him and Cordell Jones, 12 gauge. Also a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not a lot to say there because
I don't.
he bounced around practice squads for a couple years and I think played a year in Canada or something like that.
He might be able to relate to Caleb, which is why I think maybe the hire happened. Was he the assistant with the Lions, right?
Yeah, so I guess he was the assistant to what would have been Mark Brunell.
Mhm. So you also have some continuity there and understanding the offense, having worked in
Yeah,
it. Then again,
I
the offense is going to shift, so I don't know how much of that continuity really matters. We'll see.
so yeah. Overall, I'll say if Johnson liked him and it seemed like Barrett was really well liked in the building, I'm not anti it, but definitely would have preferred uh, either more experience as an NFL quarterback or more experience as an NFL quarterback coach. This one it could pop, it could be good, but there's a lot of unknowns and it
It's a
makes
wait
me a
and see.
little uncomfortable considering how important
Yeah.
it is that the quarterback coaches Caleb.
This is definitely one of those wait and sees for the hire. I have no idea. We'll see. And it really could go anyway, and I could see how that makes you uncomfortable.
So he's
I
one of he. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I know that Ben Johnson said he's gonna be spending a lot of time in Caleb's ear, so I'm hoping that mitigates any issues that could be potentially there with this hire, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's going to take a village, and we'll get into the rest of that village in a second.
I wish
There's
I
no
had a
there's no
alarm, like flashing red lights and like confetti fall out every time we say we'll see with all of these.
that it
That's like the
truly
word of the
is.
day.
Yeah,
Ah,
there's a couple here where there's not going to be so much we'll see, but I got one more. So, uh, one thing about JT Barrett is I just think it's cool, and also it makes me feel old that they hired JT Barrett.
he's
But
still young though.
an even cooler one that makes me feel very old is Antoine Randall.
I love that
Another
hire.
one. I love it mostly because it's so cool. He was such a
Yes,
cool player.
yes.
And having been the receivers coach for the Lions, he clearly did a good job in that role for whatever chunk of it that he was responsible for, and he was
You're,
highly thought of enough that the assistant head coach title to get him to take a lateral move was used on him. So clearly, he must be a very good coach. So I like it. I think Romo Dunze needs somebody in his ear, for example, to refine a lot of the dumb stuff that Rome was doing at
and
times.
knowing the style
I like it.
style of wide receiver Antoine Randall L was very nuanced. I think that is a good coach potentially to have in his ear, so that because what does Rome struggle with the most is understanding where space is based off of coverages.
Yeah,
I think he's a good
a
person to have.
shocking extent.
Yeah, I think that's a good coach to have in his ear to help out there. You're also going to say another one that came from Detroit. I cut you off just so everyone understands. Uh, I cut you off while you were saying it.
Just that Randall L came from Detroit.
Yeah, you were going to say another one that, and then I
Oh,
assumed you were going to say was a swipe from Detroit.
well, so for both of these, we don't know that much. We'll see. We don't, you know, the position coaches are so buried behind layers of more prominent guys that it's hard to say exactly how good of a hire this is. But I mean, I certainly feel a hell of a lot better about it than I do about Barrett, who himself is a will see. But what they have in
Alvin
common
Kamara.
is they were two pretty entertaining football players when I got to watch them on my TV, and Ben Johnson seems to think they're good football coaches, so that's nice. I like it.
Yeah, Amon Ra was really upset by losing him, so I think that speaks volumes.
I like to make
Any
Amon Ra upset.
Anytime you get the opposite reaction of Shane Waldron leaving the Seahawks, that's at least not a bad thing. Probably a very good thing that
Yeah.
people are upset by the the coaches that we saw from Detroit.
In general, since this was our last Detroit stealing, I gotta say it is really nice how many guys have been stolen from Detroit between us taking Ben and some positional coaches, then Aaron Glenn doing the same thing in New York, and then even my boys at Notre Dame got into the action and took one of their player personnel guys and made him their Notre Dame's GM. I'm like, man, this is a really good coordinated effort to just sink.
Total brain
I guess
drain.
just really, really test how good of a head coach Dan Campbell is.
Yep.
And Dan Campbell probably is a really good head coach who's gonna withstand this. But man, it is so nice to see such a mass exodus from a team that was so disappointing in the playoffs. Like if that was their pinnacle, man, oh, it'd be so nice.
I'm not gonna celebrate yet because I've celebrated, say, when the Packers hired Matt LaFleur, thinking, hey, who the hell is this guy? Why would you guys hire Matt LaFleur? So them losing people, I'm just one of those things where it's like until I see how they look in the season, I've come to a point where I leave anything when it comes to divisional stuff. I just don't even think about it. I try not to like be happy or excited that they
But
might suck.
breaking up a
But
15-2 team's coaching staff to this extent is a
yes,
positive. We just don't
I
know
agree.
what it might not matter all that much, but it certainly is nice.
Until they hire the next wonderkins on both sides,
Yeah, well,
including one that could potentially be a better wonderkin than
they did.
Aaron Glenn.
They went
I
kind
don't.
of in a weird direction with the offensive coordinator, if I recall correctly. I want to look this up real quick. Sorry, John Morton. This is gonna be boring. Never mind. They made a couple odd hires. I thought. I don't know.
Hiring
We'll see.
coordinators. Hiring coordinators is hard To be clear.
And Dan Campbell's first offense coordinator was Anthony Lynn, so
Yep.
it's not like he's only got a 50% success rate there. So
Yeah, and he was lucky that he technically kept Ben Johnson on the staff so that he could use him as the interim, because
yeah,
that was an interim hire that ended up working out well and saving his ass.
yeah. So let's move on. I think we got two more guys to talk about.
Oh, really quickly, we retained. Wow, I can't speak. We retained Jim Dre. That's it. Go on.
I don't know anything about him.
Yep.
I'm
Go
sure
on.
he's fine. So Press Taylor, guy that's gotten a lot of hate in both Philadelphia and Jacksonville. Philadelphia kind of weird to me because he never held the title of offense coordinator, even though I did confirm he did call plays for some reason at some point. I guess when Peterson was getting heat and Peterson decided to put it on Press. He did oversee, and hard to know how to assign blame, but he did oversee the good with Carson Wentz, followed by the extreme downfall of Carson Wentz. Then followed Doug Peterson to Jacksonville. Again, oversaw the best of Trevor Lawrence, and then oversaw the whatever you would call it now, which high ankle sprain, some combination of high ankle sprain and Press Taylor possibly being very bad at his job is probably to blame there, and some other factors as well. This is not a man that many people like. However, unlike Jacksonville, he is just the passing game coordinator here.
Which he was successful at, I believe, at others. I mean,
He was the Eagles passing game coordinator, and they won the Super Bowl. I mean,
yeah.
it's really hard to parse Press Taylor. I'll say this: when every Eagles fan hates him and every Jaguars fan hates him, I'm inclined to say it's probably bad, because the last time I ignored that every fan of a guy of a team of a guy that we hired, everybody hated him there, and I kind of ignored it. And it turns out I should not have ignored it. So I'm not going to ignore that. I'm just happy that his role is third on the call sheet at best in terms of who is influencing what is happening on offense.
It's the exact opposite of what I just said about Antron Randall. We went full Shane Waldron with the hate, at least from the fan base. I have no idea how the players feel about him. Now, I'll say this. I had mentioned it the first time we recorded the episode that won't be going live, and said we split it into two. I wonder if this is brought in specifically because the Doug Peterson flavor of the Andy Reid West Coast, which I actually think might be a bit different than what Joe Philbin ran, because I'm pretty sure West Coast inherently was from under center with like three-step drops to most things, and Andy Reid had adopted that. I don't know if it was Walt Peter. Yeah, it might have been Walt Peterson was there, to be more shotgun-esque. And I'm curious, because I think Caleb does like running out of shotgun. I'm curious how much of that has to do with it. I have no idea. It's probably minimal. But like that's something I'm trying to figure out, where the brain, like what is he trying to pick from his brain? Because one, it's also hard to parse what a pass game coordinator does. Let's be honest. Thomas Brown was our pass game coordinator, and he was doing nothing while being the pass game coordinator. In fact, had never even had many conversations with Caleb. So like, what does a pass game coordinator do? I don't know personally, and I've like listened to the beat writers; they don't really know.
I'd imagine it's a lot of film watching,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of talking to the head coach, and not many other people in that building.
And it probably depends on the organization and how they decide they want that role to run too, right? Because I'm sure some pass game coordinators actually do pass game coordination.
Yeah,
So
I think Press Taylor himself has probably been
on
a
some,
very heavy part of that in his past, and I'd imagine that experience is going to carry over, but it probably is not going to be so much. Also, when you say, what are they trying to pick in his brain? My immediate thought went to RPOs. They were so RPO heavy in both Jacksonville and especially with the Eagles. I don't know if I would say pioneered it, but they were running it a lot I would
Dolphins were running
say
it a ton to his early
besides,
years, but that would have
yeah,
been before that.
earlier, the first one who was really doing it a lot was weirdly Rodgers under McCarthy. Um, yeah, they were doing a lot of RPO stuff.
It's just going to
Weirdly, but yeah, the
Eagles would have
Eagles
been before the
Eagles really
Dolphins.
turned that up.
Yep, and then the Dolphins did it a ton, and I'm assuming he brought it over to the Jags. Who else was doing RPOs a ton at that time? Shoot, this would have been like we're trying to find something around McCarthy time, so like 2016 or like mid to early 2010s. I don't know. At that point, I think it
Yeah,
was just starting to creep into the league.
yeah, but I think that's my guess. My guess is that they definitely want to get more RPO stuff for Caleb. He is good at that type of stuff. The Lions didn't do a ton of it, so I think that's, you know, the role is the role. You only have so many roles to fill. This is the one that was
Mhm.
available. He is going to be in that role. Um, but I think the RPO stuff is probably in my mind a lot of it.
And we've talked about this a few times. I didn't want to, when I brought up my point, I wanted to make sure that you got your point out there. I agree with that completely. Um,
Yeah,
and I guess just to wrap up Press Taylor, I think he's a low impact, potentially important role in the sense that whatever they did bring him in to pick off, if that's like what they're trying to do is pick his brain, that might end up being valuable, right? But I don't think that the role itself is impactful enough in other ways. Potentially, it really depends on how they define it. They can define his impact as much as they want, is I guess where I'm going with this.
yeah.
I don't think we need to be, sounding the alarm because he got hired and fans don't like him.
No, it doesn't worry me, but if we don't learn from history, we're doomed to repeat it.
I
So
agree.
when people are saying that a guy is bad, I have to keep one eye
Yep.
open, and who
It is a
knows.
curious hire because of that. I want to add one more thing real quick.
Uh
When going back to that agent interview that I heard from Windy City Gridiron, shout out again, that I mentioned before. Um, Ben Johnson's agent did say coaching staffs are a 2-year hire because typically they don't have as much time because they're last to the cycle for all the assistants and coordinators and stuff. That when they come in to do their hiring, a lot of the guys are already gone. So I wonder also how much of this is slim pickings for who he probably would have wanted and will be
yeah,
retained going into next year. But
could be.
I think, do you have anything else on Press Taylor? Shall we go on to a
No.
surprise and also exciting
Yeah.
hire in my mind?
Uh boy, I got a lot of thoughts
You got
on
mixed feelings, I
on
bet.
on this one. I, truly a wild hire, Eric Bieniemy as the running back coach. I will start off by saying this on the plus side. He is wildly, wildly overqualified to be a running back coach anywhere in the NFL.
I'll also add the fact that the team wants to be coached hard, and I think Bieniemy is somebody who famously holds his team accountable on the practice field to the point where the Washington Commanders were so annoyed with how strict he was about stuff that they started complaining about it. It's interesting when you're a losing franchise and you don't have a winning mentality until more recently, how needing to be held to a standard that, say, the Chiefs felt constantly from him would make you complain.
Yes, but we may be walking the Olin Kreutz line a little bit, where was he coaching
Hold
hard
on.
or was he being an abusive asshole?
Okay.
We do not know. We don't
I
know. The answer is we
feel
don't know.
like I feel like people wouldn't talk as highly about him from KC if he was abusive. But you know what? Stockholm syndrome exists, and also people might not speak up. So I understand that. You might maybe potentially. I
Um,
also doesn't sound like from what I was hearing out of the commies camp that it was abusive as much more as it was assertive, aggressive, and relentless to an extent that's like, hey dude, chill. It didn't sound like he was I'll say this, it
yeah,
didn't sound like he was throwing slights and calling people names and, like, degrading them on the field. from what I
Yeah,
understood from the reporting.
I don't really know.
And well, it's not parse it. We'll figure it out.
Well, we probably never will, to be honest. I'll say this: Washington was not really that bad, considering Sam Howell was their quarterback. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't I wouldn't really want him to be our offensive coordinator, for example, our play caller. I don't trust that. I don't think the ceiling is high enough, but he's never been a bad offensive coordinator in the NFL. He
Also,
had a
pretty good at UCLA.
I don't know. That was a really tough situation though. So
Yep.
I can't hold that against really anybody. That said, again, in the running back coach role, a lot of knowledge to be mined from him, the straight up Andy Reid offense, whatever, elements of that Ben wants to incorporate. I love that aspect of it. There's not really an on-field issue that I have with it. Also watching Hard Knocks last year, the running back coach that we had, the man, he was very mean. So I remember watching that and saying, "Damn, that's a mean guy." The
Oh no,
guys seemed to like him, but man, he was mean.
I've heard he was just super high energy and competitive from everybody. I didn't hear anything about like being actually mean.
I was watching. I was like, "Damn."
I actually heard he was a lot of fun to like if you're at practice.
Oh,
From
I'm
the
sure.
beat.
I'm sure he was.
Yeah.
But when I was watching, I was like, "Damn, this is pretty rough around the edges." But
So hey, we get to keep that up.
need the lady to keep him in check, and now the lady's gone too. I want the lady to stay.
Blanking. We had
On Hard Knocks, when they would show the running back room, they would specifically show the guy who tore his ACL. I forgot his name. And they would show.
Chris.
I don't
What?
remember their names, but there was always a man and a woman coaching the running backs.
Yes, you're right. I just don't remember because I'm a chauvinistic asshole.
Well, I mean, she's never played in the league. How much could she really?
No, I just don't know names for anybody half the damn time.
I'm kidding. It always seemed like a good cop, bad cop with I wish I could remember the dude's name, but he was like,
oh, that's
featured,
right. I know who you're
wanna go to
talking about
med
now.
school.
I can.
It was
Yes,
like
I can
it was always like
picture
a good cop, bad cop
Yep.
thing where that dude would chew the guy out, and then the lady would come and be like, "Hey,
after Hard
next time
Knocks
you wanna,"
ended.
and he'd do the yelling, she'd provide the coaching.
Yes, I remember now. I can actually visualize her having a conversation now.
Yeah.
After Hard Knocks ended, I kind of just threw that off to the side because
Yeah.
it was not my favorite season. As a Bears fan, it was not my favorite season of Hard Knocks. I do not like how no, it was way too sanitized. It felt way too overproduced, and I truly think that was probably a sign for the season that was to come now. In hindsight,
It was the same as every other season.
no, it wasn't even close.
Anyway, kid, I'd be remiss not to say that Bieniemy seems like he is probably a pretty bad guy. And it's weird to me that the McCaskies.
Can you elaborate
authorized
on that
this.
point? Because I don't know if everybody knows his history of.
You know what? I'm gonna amend this to he seemed like he used to be a pretty bad guy.
Yeah, I was gonna say people can change.
Sure.
I had mentioned
But
that on
but I'm just gonna point out before I go through the some of these legal issues here on his Wikipedia page. I am going to point out that if the Commanders players are all complaining about him, I suspect there's a chance that he has not changed as much as he should have. But two different things: from a legal standpoint, from a coach standpoint, whatever. It's all speculation. That said, so his first arrest was in 1988. He gets a pass. Somebody called him a slur, and he beat them up. That's fine.
That's called for. That's
Yes.
absolutely called for.
I would say
beat up Nazis.
Should have killed the guy.
No, I wouldn't go that far, but definitely maim him.
Oh, I guess I shouldn't advocate for murder on the podcast, but you know what I mean.
No, just fuck him up.
In 1990, he pleaded no contest to interfering with a firefighter who had been performing his duties to extinguish a fire in Bieniemy's mother's garage. We haven't gotten to the bad one yet, but
we don't know what the story is there, though. Come on.
Who cares? I'm gonna get to the bad one.
Okay. Interfering with could be so many things. Go on.
Can we just pause
I don't
for a
know.
moment and say
Yeah.
that he interfered with a firefighter who's trying to put out a fire in his
And
mom's
I hear,
garage?
I
That's
hear. I have no idea what
wild.
that could mean. So many damn things. I highly doubt the man was trying to say, "Don't put out the damn fire." Maybe he wanted his mom dead. I don't freaking know.
What if he
But
did? Well,
I,
his mom probably wasn't in the garage, but maybe he really hated that garage.
yeah, insurance fraud. No, not with the firefighters already there, obviously. But go on.
On September 27, 1993, Bieniemy was arrested for allegedly harassing a female parking attendant. According to the
Mhm.
police report,
That's the
while
venom.
with his friends, Bieniemy put his hands on the attendant's neck, startling her. She told police that Bieniemy and his friends took off their pants and began urinating nearby. Bieniemy was also named an outstanding warrant on a charge of driving with a suspended license. As a result of the incident, Bieniemy was banned from Colorado's campus for a year.
So he would have been
Um,
24, right,
sure.
at that point? So I would never do that, obviously. I don't think any of us would have. There's no making excuses. But it goes back to what I've said about young college players who do stupid things going into the draft. Dude, it's when you're 24, 23, 22, you've got a very different outlook on life. You could be drunk as all hell. If they urinated in public, they probably were. Like, I don't know, unless he's got. And what I'm trying to no, that was an absolutely terrible thing. I'm not trying to justify it. Let me be clear here. What I'm trying to say is projecting that to who he is now, right? I think is very different than being completely sober and then like choking out, say, your co-host on a show.
And then in April 2001, he was arrested for a DUI.
Yeah,
Uh,
that one, that sounds like he's got drinking problems to me, both of those, which leads
he
to anger
is
issues, which leads
30,
to
32 years old, not knowing not to drive drunk. Um, yeah, I'm confident saying this is not a very good man. Um, but I'm also pretty confident saying he's a good coach.
I would agree. And I would say that his history probably leads one to think that we don't know if he's, say, been sober. We don't know what happened in those incidents. I don't want to judge a man based
It's a
on what
podcast nobody
sounds
listens
like,
to.
yeah, it
I
just,
understand. I
yeah,
understand, but I'm gonna say I'd prefer he not be in the building. Somebody with
yeah, I
who's
hear.
done
And
these things.
me and you are very different when it comes to, I think, well, typically when it comes to being like an asshole once or twice, me and you are very different on being forgiving to the person who said like being a piece of shit that day.
Which is weird because I am objectively a way bigger asshole than you, but I just have less tolerance for it, and you know.
Yeah, maybe my tolerance for it creates maybe my being not being an asshole creates empathy towards it. I don't fucking know, because I'm not going to be an asshole while I look at it. Not
I
saying that
just
you are. I think you're right to feel the way that you do.
Yeah. And I guess more so what I always like about the McCaskies is that they haven't let an asshole from a legal sense into the building since I think briefly in 2013 when they signed Ray McDonald, and then went back on that and released him about a month later. Um, they just don't typically let guys with really any sort of past of like violence,
I think they
especially
take
against
that to an
women.
extreme, though, man. That because when it comes to, I wonder how much personnel decisions come to that, right? Like how much of Jalen Carter passing on Jalen Carter for Darnell Wright was because that's part of, hey, he fucked up DUI. And remember how much I was defending him at the time.
Sure.
Fucked up DUI. Maybe we don't want that in the building. How much of that also came from the McCaskies down, right? I don't know. I have no idea, but I'm curious how much of that also leads into like personnel decisions, because we have a, not them saying you don't do, don't take him, but them pushing the culture of, we want good, like people who don't do, like who are objectively good all around, right? And then that leaks into, well, if I'm making this decision as a GM, I got to remember what the culture is that we want to build around the Bears from the ownership, right? And so I say they do. I feel like they might take it, because like how often do we bring in assholes outside of We haven't brought in an asshole, I feel like, since the what's it called? Since the Trustman era.
Yeah, I said the guy, Ray McDonald, briefly. But it was the last one with the history of like violence against women, for example.
Yeah. And to be fair, if like violence against women is something that I absolutely have very little tolerance for, even though obviously the enemy is like his is exactly that. Like for instance, like I would not want Tyreek Hill on my team ever.
Yeah, I mean, it's recent. The argument that I'm a little sympathetic to is that this happened, over 30 years ago. Uh, um, I think guys are, I wouldn't say entitled to a second chance, but I don't blame those that want to give them a second chance. I just kind of wish it wasn't my favorite team. Is all I'm getting at, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, that's all though. I mean, he's been a wildly successful coach in the NFL. And again, like I said, extremely overqualified for this role. I think he's
Yeah.
going to have a lot of good ideas to bring to the table.
So here's my question
It's
though.
just wild. I can't believe I can't believe he's the running back coach for both positive and negative reasons. It's wild.
Here's my question though, and then I'll get into why I really like the hire. Obviously, he's a running back coach. That doesn't mean he's like dealing with the running game specifically, but he is dealing with like the running backs on like pass pro, teaching them like how to read their lanes, etc., and figuring out how to like cut off their blocks, yada yada yada, routes, etc. Do I really want anyone associated with Andy Reid's run game associated with my run game?
Yeah, why not?
Andy Reid hasn't had a good run game, and God, I can't remember the last time. It would have been shoot, when did he get hired by the Chiefs? Most of
When
his
did Andy Reid get hired by the Chiefs?
let's see, it would have been
2013, I think.
who was their running back then?
Jamal Charles.
Yes, it would have been then.
Okay,
If
well,
Jamal Charles was still good. I don't remember what his year was in 2013.
uh, shall I look it up?
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing this all pod, so we might as well. Jamal Charles, 2013, 1287. He was averaging 5 yards a carry. And yeah, so that would have been a good year.
Yeah, he was excellent.
But other than that, like I can't remember.
The next year, then he got hurt. I would say, I mean,
What I'm trying to say is since Jamal Charles and that era of the Chiefs, I can't remember. Isaiah
can I?
Pacheco looked pretty good last year for a bit, but that's
I was gonna say, man, I don't know if I agree with any of this. Kareem Hunt, his
oh
entire let's ignore the fact that they got anything at all out of him this year. Kareem Hunt before being released was awesome in his first go
no,
around.
you're right. This is where my brain's off. It hasn't been good over the last 3 years, and I think that's what I'm thinking of. Like it hasn't been good since Kareem Hunt. Thank you.
But even I don't know, like even Pacheco was
Pacheco
honestly.
was good last year, but that was all success rate. Like how often was Pacheco? How often was anyone since Kareem Hunt breaking off runs? I guess is my question.
I don't know. I guess I would wonder how much of that is the player, the talent in the room versus
Yeah.
the coaching. I
So
mean, I don't
this
know.
is where I get to say this is all me being a dick, and I don't
Uh-huh.
think any of this matters. To be
Sure.
clear, even if you didn't come up with the uh, Kareem Hunt part of
Kareem
it,
Hunt.
I was planning on. That's another person who beat women. I was planning on making this mostly a joke. I don't think it matters for this position, but I wanted to just throw that out there because I was thinking that way, and oh god, now I'm wrong. I was wrong. I made myself look stupid. It's cool. I totally forgot about the Kareem Hunt era.
Yeah,
You got nothing?
well, again, we're just kind of naming good players. I mean, to your point, like I guess not to your point, but as a slight defense, like I don't know if he's good at the architecture of a run game. Like I kind of think he is, but I don't know enough. Um, man, LaShawn McCoy and on the Eagles. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I kind of do. I think he's. I think it's actually pretty good. Go on to your next point.
Cool. Moving on. The thing that I like about the Bieniemy hire is if you look at the staff outside of Press Taylor, and obviously this is like Rochar's got a lot of experience too. So like when we had first recorded that last podcast that is not getting released and we instead of split it into two, we didn't have any experience on this coaching staff. Like at that point, it was Declan, uh, shoot, why am I blanking here? Declan, JT Barrett, and Antoine Randall. There wasn't a lot of experience quite yet. And then Press Taylor. Press Taylor was the one person we had with experience.
Ben Press, yeah.
Then we add Bieniemy, and then we add Dan Rochar, and we've got now three pretty grizzled old coaches with a lot of experience behind them. And I really like this hire because of that, especially because I think Bieniemy is somebody that Declan can also lean on if he needs to with the offensive coordinating duties to help him out, say when Ben Johnson is busy and he needs another person to kick ideas off of as he's trying to
Yeah.
figure stuff out. I really like this hire because of that. You bring in somebody who, yes, he's a running back coach, but I also think he's also there to help in totality.
I think the whole room is here to add a little bit of their background because it's a pretty diverse schematic
It is
background. I think that the
incredibly.
whole room is there to do that.
That was the other thing that I was thinking as well. So you've got a couple people, one off the Doug Peterson part of the Andy Reid tree. You've got the Andy Reid tree itself. You got the Sean Payton tree. You've got Ben Johnson tree, which is the Eric Coryell and original West Coast offense, right? As well as some McVay because of Jared Goff. You got everything to work with when it comes to offensive schemes. Now, I trust Ben Johnson to be able to marry the concepts together from each of those because
Yeah,
he's
that
proven to be able to do it before.
that is the potential concern. I agree that he. Jeez, I'm like zoning out halfway through. I'm
We're
talking.
almost at an hour 40, so like I totally get it. It's been
Yeah,
a
it's
long
too long.
my
Um,
brain's forgetting names now.
yeah, I'm optimistic that he can marry the concepts, but yeah, that is the concern. It is a lot of different stuff that you're gonna put together. You're gonna take a little bit from everything to try to, make put Caleb in the best position to succeed as possible. So you want to try to marry all these different concepts. Um, yeah, I think in the hands of a lesser coach, it would just look like a
That would
hodgepodge
scare
of
me.
nothing, and it wouldn't look like anything.
That would
Um,
scare me. In the hands of Nagy, that would scare me. What would end up happening is everyone gets fired and then he hires only yes men who don't know his stuff. He did
yeah,
that,
yeah.
and the offense went downhill.
But yeah, I think yeah, we have a certain level of trust in Ben with the caveat that there's obviously lots of unknowns that we've already gone over.
I'll
Um,
say this, considering the fact that he sat down with Jared Goff and learned the parts of McVay's offense that Goff liked to a point where he understood them inherently, I don't think he's somebody I think in my mindset similar, right? I don't want to use things that I don't understand in a very deep way unless I absolutely have to. So I think with all of the brain meld, he's somebody that I trust based off of his previous experience that he'll make sure that if he's deploying it, unless he knows he's deploying it the right way, he just won't deploy it. That's what I hope. And that's what
yeah,
I feel. That's so I think it would be a concern typically. I think it still is a concern. Maybe we keep a red flag for, hey, let's watch as this unfolds because if we start to see things that say, hey, maybe this is why, we should be aware of it. However,
yeah,
I am fairly optimistic that it'll be fine. And it'll
yeah,
be good.
yeah.
It's a good thing. Like I'm optimistic it's a good thing.
We definitely can't just default to it'll probably be fine because then that's where just well we're Bears fans, so it'll probably be fine. what it should be,
Yeah.
honestly, is where Bears fans, it'll probably be a huge disaster. But there are indicators that this should work. All right.
Well, we both agree that Rashard is probably a average, decent floor hire at OL coach, right? So we're talking JT Barrett,
I don't know.
Press Taylor, and who else as people that on the staff that are and Declan Doyle are the actual OC that may be over their skis or bad hires, either over their skis because of experience or bad hires, right? Potentially. Press Taylor's in a position that isn't all too important, potentially. We don't know. So like there's ways to argue it, but yeah, until we see it, and we'll see. Ah,
And
I
we've been going on an hour and 45 minutes, and I think all we're going to continue saying is we don't know and we'll see. I'm just pointing out the obvious that it could be a disaster. We don't know.
yeah, we'll see. But I want to just throw that out there. Like it could be a disaster, yeah, but the impact of the people that we keep saying we'll see to hopefully with the explanations that make sense. But again, yeah, you're right. Forget it. Keep going.
Richard Hightower's still here. I don't care.
Moving on to special
Fine.
teams. Yeah,
Uh,
it's fine. Unless you could have gone for like a higher ceiling special teams coordinator.
clearly they wanted Rizzy. So it wasn't the first choice, but I don't know. Do that cool punt return play again. That was fun.
And I do think our special teams got better as the season went on with all the injuries considering. And he's probably good enough.
I wonder if Ben will be as fake punt happy as Campbell was. Campbell really loved snapping it to like Jalen Maven Reeves or whatever his name is, and
Which
that'd be interesting.
is it just my mind just playing tricks on me, or were the Lions actually fairly successful percentage wise on those when they should absolutely not be?
I can really only think of like one that didn't work.
Right. Shocking. Those plays should not
Right.
work.
Didn't that happen to us this year? Didn't we get fake punted on a
wanna
really
say-
obvious?
Yeah. I want
Can't
to say
remember.
we did. I want to say we did.
It wasn't the Lions, I don't think, but somebody, maybe the Packers, somebody did it to us. I was like, really didn't see that coming? Like, come on. Your
I don't
punt,
remember.
the punt return team's duties aren't so important that the first thing in their mind should be watch the fake. Like, man, all you got to do is block once they start running down the field. Otherwise, watch the fake until you know it's not a fake. Stupid. Whatever. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Hightower will get to be a little creative, and we'll see. We'll see if he has that in him. Who knows? Don't care though. Don't care about special teams coach at all. I don't know. What do you think about the full picture?
Full picture
Besides,
wise,
we'll see.
yeah, we'll see. I mean, only we'll see. I like the brain meld a lot because I trust that the brain meld will work. Obviously, that could go any way. So again, we'll see. Other than that, I mean, I like it. Is it weird that even with all the negatives we brought up, I like it a lot for the fact that I feel like he's brought in a lot of people for specific reasons, and also Dennis Allen. Like,
Yeah, I like most of it. It's the offensive line coach not being a clear upgrade that, and it really needed to be.
I think it's still an upgrade over Chris Morgan,
I mean,
or
most
at
things.
least Chris Morgan with Shane Waldron. It's an upgrade over.
Yeah, you know what? I not to get too much more into it, but
Also, sorry, go on.
you know, Ben Johnson's concepts they start like offensive line out. Like he's super detailed on offensive line, and a guy like Rushard that has experience as a run game coordinator and this and that. It seems like those two could really work well together. And especially the shared kind of Saints, Campbell, Peyton, that kind of loose connection. You could definitely talk yourself into, especially because the synergy between the offensive line coach and the play caller is maybe more important than the offensive line coach's individual talents as a coach in some ways. So I guess there's my homer kind of argument for it. I think I could absolutely envision a world where these two are absolutely on the same page and things really flow together and look nice. So I'll say that.
I was about to cut you off, and then I was like, hold on, let me let him talk, because I was literally at the same thought pop in my mind, a little different. But yeah, it with Ben Johnson, a lot of the plays start up front and how the blocking looks, because a lot of his plays are designed to look the same, including from the blocking perspective. So it's so detailed.
The famous John
That-
Shoup quote that he shared, a major misstep for Ben in the the introductory presser to invoke that man's name. But yeah, it was my philosophy is make different things look the same and the same
Yep.
things look different. Stuff, something like that.
And
Yeah, it starts up front.
so I think his details up there will hopefully set up a decent floor for whatever happens with the YOLO coach. Now, that doesn't mean that the YOLO coach can't affect it. Obviously, like, it depends on how he goes about technique, right? Because like every offensive lineman's going to be better at certain techniques. Some
Sure.
offensive line coaches are so stubborn about things that they force them to change how they go about their plans and their techniques within each rep to fit exactly what they want, and then that ends up breaking a lot of offensive linemen. I don't know if that's something that Rashard believes in or not. I can't say. But as long as he understands how to mold each individual piece to become one unison, right? As long as that's there, and then you add in the fact that the blocking scheme is usually pretty tightly sealed up, and the pass protections are usually pretty sealed up from Ben Johnson on down, I'm hoping the floor is at least pretty high.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I could talk myself into it. And so, I'll give the whole thing like my personal reservations about Bieniemy as a person aside. I think the inclusion of him did kind of make the when Rappaport or whoever it was said that he was assembling a star-studded coaching staff. Like, yeah, with Bieniemy, like it kind of is. Um, so yeah, there's specific spots, offensive line coach and quarterback coach specifically, where I wish there was a little more certainty in my end, but I could talk myself into both. So yeah, I give the whole thing like a B.
Yeah, I was
think
gonna
he
give
did
it a B
a solid
plus.
job.
I was gonna give it a B plus. And also, for anyone listening, uncertainty does not mean doubt. It just means we no clue. If we haven't said that 1,000 times, let's go. I'm gonna keep saying it. I'm gonna keep saying it.
It's just that and maybe it's an argument why this didn't need to be an episode, and certainly a great argument why it didn't need to be a nearly 2-hour episode. Is just unless you're in the room, you really don't have any idea what these guys are. All we can do is kind of look through their history, look through how their units did, see the way people talk about them, read their criminal rap sheet, and make our judgments accordingly.
And to relate to the NFL draft coming up, when you hear somebody say it's a question mark, we don't know if somebody can do something in the NFL, that does not mean that they're bad at it. Just like with this, I want to say that because we'll be getting into draft coverage hopefully after free agency, but that's definitely something we'll be saying quite a bit, is this is a question mark with them. So, anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
I did have a little bit more on the difference between different races. So,
Yes.
if you go back to evolution,
Please, Elon, go on.
Nah, I'm done. Let's get out of here.
Are you not going to preach the apartheid to me?
Let's get
Or
out
are
of
you
here.
going to tell me that the government doesn't use SQL for Social Security?
Eject.
All right, well, I'm Adam. That's Kev. Thank you for sliding into Virginia's DMs.
Bye-bye.